God says, this message is only for you. 5 minutes left. Massive changes are coming into your life, and if you ignore this warning, you will miss the very moment heaven has been trying to place in your hands. Chosen one, do not scroll past this. Do not tell yourself you will come back later. Later has already stolen too much from you. This is not random, and it is not a coincidence that you are hearing these words right now, at this exact second, with this exact weight on your spirit. Heaven has tried to reach you before. God has sent signs before. Michael has stood watch over your life before. But this moment is different, because this is not just another reminder. This is a serious warning. Something is shifting around you, and what you do next matters more than you realize. Michael says, pay attention. The pressure you have felt, the restlessness in your spirit, the strange heaviness you could not explain, the sense that something is wrong, even when everything looks normal on the surface. None of that came from nowhere. Your spirit has been picking up on movement. Your discernment has been reacting to something real. God says, I saw every silent battle, every hidden tear, every moment you felt surrounded by confusion and could not explain it to anyone. You were not weak. You were not imagining it. You were sensing that your life had entered a serious spiritual moment. That is why this warning has found you now. You are not hearing this by accident. You are hearing this because heaven refuses to let you step blindly into the next chapter without first waking you up. Before we go any further, I need you to respond by faith. If you know this message is speaking directly to your spirit, comment 777 right now. Write, I receive it. And if you are ready for God to expose what has been hidden, break what has been delaying you, and release what belongs to your next season, then, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this message with someone who needs this warning before it is too late. God says, I saw everything you could not explain to anyone without feeling misunderstood. I saw the nights when your body was exhausted but your spirit refused to rest, when you lay still in the dark but something inside you stayed alert, burdened, unsettled, and unable to fully let go. I saw the moments when your heart felt heavy for no visible reason, when you tried to smile through conversations that left you drained, when you walked away from certain people and felt a weight you could not put into words. I saw how many times you questioned yourself because what you felt was too deep to be ordinary, yet too invisible for others to understand. And I need you to hear this now with all your heart. You were not weak, and you were not imagining it. Heaven was watching more closely than you knew. Heaven was standing near you when nobody else understood why you had become so tired inside. Battles were pressing against your life that never introduced themselves openly. They came through disappointment. They came through confusion. They came through quiet pressure, through emotional exhaustion, through the slow pain of being around people who did not see what your spirit was trying to warn you about. God says, I saw every private tear you wiped away before anyone noticed. I saw every moment when you stayed strong in front of others and then broke in secret because the weight had become too much to carry alone. I saw the way betrayal changed your trust, how delay changed your hope, how repeated disappointment tried to teach your heart to expect less so you would stop reaching for what I promised. I saw the loneliness of being surrounded by voices yet still feeling unseen. I saw the ache of trying to explain a spiritual burden to people who only measured what could be touched, counted, or proven. But I never turned away from you, not once. Even when you thought heaven was silent, I was still present. Even when all you felt was pressure, I was still protecting what the enemy wanted to crush. Michael says, not every spiritual attack comes with dramatic signs. Some enter like fog. Some work through subtle discouragement, slow confusion, and the kind of weariness that makes a person question their own discernment. That is why this season was so painful. You were trying to survive something your natural eyes could not fully define, even see. Lewis understood this in the Screwtape Letters, where he showed that darkness often works best through distortion, distraction, and the slow weakening of the soul. And that is exactly why what happened to you felt so real in your spirit while seeming invisible to others. God says, I allowed you to feel what others could not see because I was teaching your spirit to recognize what your eyes could not yet confirm. I was training your discernment in the middle of discomfort. I was showing you that your unrest was not always fear. Sometimes it was protection. Sometimes it was a warning. Sometimes it was my mercy, refusing to let you settle into what was quietly harming you. So no, you were not too sensitive. You were sensing more than people around you understood. You were carrying a spiritual awareness that made certain rooms feel wrong, certain voices feel heavy, and certain connections feel unsafe before the truth had fully surfaced. And through all of that, I kept you. I kept your mind from breaking. I kept your heart from going completely cold. I kept a flame inside you alive, even in the middle of confusion. That is why you are still here. That is why this message is reaching you now. Because the pain was real, but so was my hand on your life. The pressure was real, but so was my protection. The battle was real, but so was the mercy that would not let you be destroyed by it. So tell me in the comments, if this part is touching your spirit. Write, God saw me. Michael says, this is no longer a gentle warning. This is no longer one more quiet nudge that you can set aside and revisit when it feels more convenient. This is a divine emergency, and the reason it feels so intense is that you have reached a point where delay is no longer harmless. What you do in this hour matters. What you ignore in this hour matters. What you agree with in this hour matters. There are moments in life when time moves normally, and then there are moments when heaven compresses everything into a narrow window and says, respond now. This is one of those moments. That is why your spirit has been uneasy. That is why the pressure has increased. That is why the warning has become sharper instead of softer. Heaven is not repeating itself because it has nothing else to say. Heaven is speaking with urgency because something critical is standing at the door of your life right now. God says, I have been patient with you through seasons of hesitation. I have watched you wrestle with fear, exhaustion, disappointment, and confusion. I have seen how many times you wanted to move forward but felt pulled backward by what wounded you before. I have seen how delay slowly dressed itself up as caution, and how fear tried to call itself wisdom. But this moment cannot be treated like the others. This moment carries weight. This moment is marked. This moment has consequences attached to it. Because you are standing between what tried to keep ruling over your life and what I am calling you into next. That is why the tension feels so real. You are not standing in an ordinary hour. You are standing at a threshold. Michael says, stop minimizing what your spirit has been telling you. Stop calling this intensity an overreaction. Stop trying to reduce a holy interruption into something casual. The enemy loves when you make light of what heaven is taking seriously. The enemy loves it when you postpone what should be answered now. He knows that if he cannot destroy your calling outright, he will try to wear down your response. He will try to make you slower, duller, more passive, more willing to say, maybe later. until later becomes another lost season. That is why this moment is under pressure. That is why resistance has been so aggressive. Not because heaven abandoned you, but because what is being decided now carries more power than you yet understand. God says, I am not asking you to have every answer before you respond. I am asking you not to harden your heart when I am making the hour clear. You do not need a perfect understanding to obey. You do not need total clarity to say yes. You do not need to feel fully healed before you respond to my voice. What you need is willingness. What you need is honesty. What you need is the courage to admit that something in your life can no longer remain where it has been. There are things I am trying to move, expose, break, and release, but I will not force open the parts of your life you keep closing through hesitation. This is why the warning sounds stronger now. This is why the call feels heavier now. This is why you cannot treat this like background noise. Michael says, hear this with your spirit. You are standing between delay and destiny, and both are trying to claim this hour. One says, wait, hesitate, numb yourself, scroll past, come back tomorrow, keep pretending nothing is shifting. The other says, wake up, respond, discern, stand, speak, and receive what heaven is trying to place into your hands. One path keeps you in the same cycle, only more exhausted. The other path breaks the cycle and begins the separation between what attacked you and where God is taking you. That is why this feels like pressure. This is not random emotional weight. This is the strain of a soul being called to make a serious response. God says, I am giving you this warning because I do not want you entering your next season half awake. I do not want you carrying old hesitation into a new door. I do not want you letting the same passivity that cost you peace in the last season cost you a breakthrough in this one. Too much is at stake now for you to stay numb. Too much has already been delayed. Too much has already been fought over in the unseen for you to stand here and act like nothing important is happening. The hour is serious because your future is serious. The warning is sharp because what has been circling your life is sharp. And the call is urgent because heaven knows exactly what is trying to happen around you right now. So listen carefully. Breathe, but do not drift. Pause, but do not postpone. Discern, but do not withdraw. Because this is not just a message. This is an alarm in the spirit, and heaven is sounding it before the next door opens. God says, two futures are standing before you right now, and heaven is not hiding that from you anymore. One is filled with release, restoration, truth, provision, and the kind of peace your soul has been craving for far too long. The other is marked by more delay, more confusion, more betrayal, and another season of carrying pain that was never meant to follow you this far. And I need you to understand this clearly. This is not about drama. This is not an exaggeration. This is the seriousness of a spiritual crossroads. You are not just deciding how to feel today. You are deciding what you will agree with in this hour. And what you agree with now will shape what opens next. Michael says, this is why the pressure around you has been so intense. The enemy knows that if he can keep you frozen in hesitation for just a little longer, he can push you toward the version of your future built on delay. He knows he does not need to destroy you in one moment if he can keep you doubting, stalling, shrinking back, and calling it wisdom. He knows that if he can keep you emotionally exhausted, spiritually numb, and mentally divided, he can keep the wrong door open longer than it should have stayed open. But heaven is interrupting that pattern now. Heaven is showing you that there has always been more at stake than you realized. God says, I have already seen the future the enemy wanted for you. I saw the version where you kept tolerating what wounded you, where you kept ignoring the warning signs, where you kept accepting cycles that drained your strength and dimmed your discernment. I saw the version where your heart became more guarded, your faith became quieter, and your expectations became smaller because disappointment taught you to prepare for less. But I am also showing you another future. I am showing you the one where truth breaks through, where what was hidden is exposed, where what was delayed is released, where what tried to sit on your life loses its grip, and where you begin to walk with a clarity that the last season tried to steal from you. C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity that every time you make a choice, you are turning the central part of yourself into something a little different than it was before. That is why this moment matters so much. This is not just about one reaction. It is about who you are becoming through your response. Michael says, choose the future that agrees with heaven. Choose the future that requires faith, not passivity. Choose the future that demands courage, not comfort. Because one version of your life keeps you surviving, but the other finally lets you step into what God has been preparing behind all this pressure. And the difference between them is not luck, it is a response. Michael says, someone close to you has not been fully honest, and your spirit has known it longer than your mind wanted to admit. This is why certain conversations left you heavy for no clear reason. This is why certain smiles never brought you peace. This is why you kept trying to dismiss what you felt, yet the uneasiness kept returning stronger each time. God says, I have been showing you in fragments because the truth was too serious to ignore, but you kept hoping that what you sensed was not real. You kept telling yourself you were reading too much into it. You kept trying to protect your heart from disappointment by calling discernment fear. But what you felt was not fear, it was a warning. What you felt was not paranoia. It was your spirit reacting to something hidden that was already affecting your life. There is a person near you whose words have not matched their heart. There is someone who has smiled in your presence while feeding confusion behind your back. There is someone who benefited from your delay, your self-doubt, your silence, and your exhaustion. That is why heaven has been pressing this matter with such urgency. This is not a small issue. This is not a passing discomfort. This is something that has been interfering with your peace, your judgment, and the timing of what should have reached you by now. Michael says, do not ignore the pattern. Do not excuse what keeps repeating. Do not keep handing trust to what your spirit keeps resisting. The enemy often works through what stays close enough to influence you without being questioned. Not everything attacking your destiny comes from a distance. Some things sit near you. Some things speak kindly to your face while weakening you in secret. Some things keep you emotionally entangled so that your discernment becomes blurry and your response becomes slow. That is why your spirit has been restless. That is why peace has been hard to hold on to. You are not imagining the contradiction. You were picking up on it before it fully revealed itself. God says, I am not exposing this to destroy you. I am exposing it to free you. I am not showing you hidden resistance so you can become bitter. I am showing it to you so you can stop agreeing with what has been draining you. The truth will not remain buried forever. What was whispered will come into the light. What was concealed behind excuses and mixed signals will become clearer than before. There will be a conversation, a message, a reaction, or a moment that confirms what your spirit has been trying to tell you. And when that moment comes, do not shrink back and do not pretend you did not see it. Receive the clarity, stand in it. Let heaven separate you from what has been poisoning your peace. Some people were sent to support your future, but others only attach themselves to your process. Learn the difference now. Michael says, this is the hour to ask for holy separation, not forced closeness. Ask God to remove what is false, uncover what is hidden, and silence every influence that has been clouding your spirit. Ask for courage to accept the truth, even if it hurts your expectations, because the pain of revelation is lighter than the pain of staying bound to deception. And hear this carefully. Once heaven reveals what has been hidden, you must not go back to pretending. You must not reopen what God is trying to close. You must not protect the thing that wounded you just because the truth arrived in a form that hurts. God says, I am making this plain because I love you too much to let confusion keep sitting at your table. I love you too much to let hidden sabotage keep speaking into your next season. So, tell me in the comments, have you felt in your spirit that someone near you was not fully honest? And if you are ready for God to reveal, remove, and restore, type this by faith, Lord, reveal it. God says, the reason your battles have felt so unusually intense is that your life was never ordinary. What has been pressing against you did not come with that much force for no reason. The level of resistance around you has been revealing something even when you did not yet have language for it. You were marked by calling before you were ever fully aware of it, and the enemy recognized the weight on your life long before many people around you did. That is why some of your struggles have felt deeper than what others could understand. That is why normal disappointments hit your spirit like warfare. That is why certain losses did not feel like a simple loss, but like an assault on your peace, your identity, and your ability to keep moving forward. Michael says, the enemy does not waste this kind of pressure on empty vessels. He does not fight this hard against a life that carries nothing. He does not keep sending confusion, delay, false attachment, and emotional exhaustion towards someone who has no threat to his kingdom. The violence of the resistance has been speaking, even in seasons when no one else around you understood the cost of what you were carrying. Some people saw your reactions, but they did not see the weight behind them. Some people judged your weariness, but they did not see the constant strain of standing under invisible pressure while still trying to remain faithful. God says, you have spent too much time misreading the evidence. You looked at the size of the battle and assumed it meant something was wrong with you, when in truth it was revealing something significant about you. You looked at how often things broke, how often doors stalled, how often people disappointed you, and you began to wonder if your life was simply built for hardship. But that is not the truth. The conflict became personal because your future is not small. The warfare became strategic because your assignment is not small. What has been trying to wear you down has been trying to make you forget who you are before you fully step into what was written over your life. That is why so much of the attack has been aimed at your confidence, your discernment, your endurance, and your sense of worth. If the enemy can make you feel common, he can make you live beneath the level of authority God placed in you. If he can make you feel unwanted, he can make you question the very calling heaven has been protecting. If he can make you feel exhausted enough, he can make you delay what should have been answered with boldness. Michael says, think about the pattern. How many times did the heaviest resistance show up right before a shift? How many times did confusion increase just before clarity began to break through? How many times did your strength get tested the hardest when you were closest to stepping into something new? That was not random. That was the enemy reacting to movement. That was darkness trying to create enough pressure to make you retreat before the breakthrough fully formed. But you are still here. You are still listening. You are still standing after everything that tried to hollow you out. And that alone is proof that heaven has not let go of you. God says, you are not worthless. You are not too damaged to be used. You are not disqualified because the battle left bruises on your heart. What has happened to you was real, but it does not have the authority to rename you. Delay cannot rename you. Betrayal cannot rename you. Rejection cannot rename you. Spiritual pressure cannot rename you. I am the one who names you, and I have never called you forgotten. I have never called you disposable. I have never called you weak. I have called you set apart, preserved, and carried for a reason. So stop measuring yourself by the intensity of what attacked you. Start recognizing that the scale of the attack was revealing the scale of what heaven placed inside you. The battle was violent because your future carries consequences. The resistance was severe because your obedience carries power. And the reason you could never fully settle into a life of compromise is that something in your spirit has always known you were called to more. That is why the last season felt suffocating. That is why certain places and people felt too small for what God was stirring in you. Heaven was not punishing you. Heaven was refusing to let you become comfortable beneath your true calling. God says, what I am preparing for you is not small, and it is not symbolic. This is not a season of tiny adjustments and surface-level relief. This is a season of real movement, real release, real evidence, and the kind of breakthrough that changes the direction of a life. For too long, you have lived under pressure that made everything feel delayed, reduced, or just out of reach. You watched the doors almost open and then stall. You watched answers seem near and then disappear behind confusion. You watched your strength get spent in places that never should have demanded that much from you. But hear me now. The shift coming toward you is not minor. It is not fragile. It is not imaginary. What heaven is preparing carries weight. Michael says, the battle became this intense because what is coming carries impact. Darkness does not gather this much resistance around a person unless something valuable is close. That is why the pressure increased. That is why the atmosphere around your life has felt heavy. That is why your spirit has been sensing that something is about to break open. You were not feeling false hope. You were feeling the strain of transition. God says, I can restore what was delayed, uncover what was hidden, and bring into your hands what should have reached you sooner. I can send the truth through the very place where confusion tried to live. I can bring provisions into the place that felt starved. I can release peace where anxiety tried to settle. I can open a door that no manipulation, no betrayal, no silent resistance can keep closed once my hand moves on it. What is coming is not just emotional relief. It is a visible change. It is direction. It is confirmation. It is the beginning of things aligning after a long season of disorder. For some, that breakthrough will touch finances. For some, it will reach into the family and bring truth to the surface. For some, it will expose what was draining them and finally cut the tie. For some, it will reopen a path they thought had died. But in every case, the change will carry one message: heaven did not forget you. Michael says, do not expect a small ending after such a serious war. Expect the release to be equal to the level of what tried to stop you. Expect clarity after confusion. Expect light after concealment. Expect movement after the delay. God says, what I have prepared for your next season is greater than the fear that tried to hold you in the last one. And if you stay in faith through this hour, you will not just survive this shift. You will step into it. God says, hear this clearly. It is not doubt that has been choking this moment. It is delayed. Doubt can be answered. Doubt can be brought to me. Doubt can still kneel and say, Lord, help my unbelief. But delay is different. Delay keeps the mouth closed when heaven is asking for a response. Delay keeps the hand still when heaven is telling you to move. Delay disguises itself as caution, maturity, and timing, but underneath it is often fear refusing to surrender. That is why so much has remained stuck, not because God was unwilling, not because heaven forgot, not because the promise died. It remained stuck because hesitation kept sitting where agreement should have been. Michael says, later is the language of resistance. Later is how people talk when they feel the warning, but do not want to bear the cost of obeying it. Later is how seasons get stolen. Later is how doors remain unopened while the spirit grows heavier and more tired. But now is different. Now is the language of faith. Now is the sound of a soul coming into agreement with what heaven has been saying all along. God says, stop handing your future to later. Stop giving delay the authority to decide what only obedience should decide. This hour does not need perfection from you. It needs a response. It needs surrender. It needs a yes that breaks the cycle. Because what has been waiting over your life is not being held back by my power. It is being held back by your pause. And once that pause breaks, everything around this moment can begin to move. Michael says, do not let this hour pass without responding to heaven in a real and intentional way. This is not the moment to stay passive, distracted, or half awake in your spirit. This is the moment to become deliberate. First, stop scrolling and become still. Give God your full attention for these next few moments. Do not treat this like background noise while your mind keeps running in 10 different directions. Heaven is speaking, and your response matters. God says, open your mouth and answer me. Say it out loud if you can. Lord, I say yes. I renounce delay. I receive your truth, your protection, and your timing over my life. Do not wait until you feel stronger. Do not wait until every emotion settles. Speak while the moment is alive. Speak while your spirit is being stirred. Then ask God directly to reveal anything hidden around you. Remove every false influence and close every door that was never sent by Him. Ask Him to expose what has been draining your peace and to separate you from what has been clouding your discernment. Michael says, this is also the hour to reject agreement with fear. Do not keep rehearsing the lies that came from betrayal, disappointment, and delay. Break that agreement now. Tell God you are ready for truth, even if it is uncomfortable, ready for separation if it is holy, and ready for movement if heaven says move. And if this message is your confirmation, seal your response publicly by writing 777 in the comments and declaring, I'm ready. Let your yes become visible. Let your faith become active. Let this be the moment where hesitation loses its grip and heaven hears your agreement clearly. God says, the door is open right now, but it will not remain open forever. This is the part many people do not want to hear because they want mercy without movement, warning without response, and breakthrough without surrender. But heaven is making this plain to you because the hour is too serious for soft words. What stands before you now is not a casual opportunity. It is a sacred opening. It is a marked moment. It is a narrow window where truth, protection, exposure, release, and redirection are all pressing close to your life. at the same time. That is why everything in your spirit has felt heightened. That is why this message has carried so much weight. You are not just hearing words. You are standing in a moment that can divide one season from another. Michael says, "Do not confuse an open door with a permanent door. Some doors are divine, but they are also timed. Some moments carry grace, but they also carry urgency. If you keep waiting for a more comfortable hour, you may watch this one pass and then wonder why the atmosphere changed, why the clarity faded, why the same old heaviness returned. It will not be because God failed you. It will be because you treated a holy opening like an optional suggestion. And this is exactly what the enemy wants, to keep you calm in the wrong moment.